Beginning resynchronization.
Hello and welcome to Resync, a podcast where friends talk about games. I'm Sam.
My boy. I'm Chase.
How you doing, man?
Not too bad. My shoulder's still killing me. Nothing like a pinched nerve and some muscle relaxers before jumping into a podcast.
Oh yeah. Well, we made it through the week, and now we get to enjoy a long weekend, so that's going to be nice.
Yeah, finally maybe do some catching up on some games I've been neglecting for a while.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit more of game homework, but before we get into that, today we're going to be talking about tutorials.
Yes.
But first, we're going to touch on some first impressions of our game homework. Now that we've gotten an hour into our assignments, we'll take on your homework first, which is a retro-inspired 3D platformer where you traverse a seamless open world of platforming areas that are connected by a vast desert, all the while chasing down fish and coins, collectathon style. But how are you feeling about Tacklebox, the Big Catch Tacklebox?
So far, I'm a fan. I definitely get why you would have recommended it. I don't know what to say besides it has for sure a steep learning curve.
Oh, yeah.
But once you get a hang of the mechanics, it really starts to feel good. You've certainly helped me with that with your quick demo of some of those, as I definitely had to reach out to you that I think I made it like 40 minutes in before I had to step away and go, man, I don't know if I'm missing something or I'm just bad at games, but as soon as we discussed a little bit more, I realized maybe I am just a little bad at games or applying the fundamentals at this point because I'm so far removed from basic platforming anymore. There's not so much an emphasis on anything besides can you clamber up this ledge or can I climb the side of this building? And most of the times those things are done for you.
Yeah.
So this is a good reintroduction to actually playing games instead of letting them do some of that work for you.
Yeah, a little more like learning the mechanics and then figuring out how to apply those to the platforming puzzles.
Absolutely. I am going to give a shout out for anybody who decides to look into this game. Don't be a smooth brain like myself. When you're told you need bait to catch the first fish, the bait's right there. Don't spend 20 minutes running around. You'll find it. Just don't be me.
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of a learning curve, as you said. It's the well runs deep with how the mechanics work and how you apply those mechanics, and the game doesn't necessarily explain to you how varied some of the applications of those mechanics are, and that can definitely be jarring if you're not like looking for that.
Yeah, and definitely that was the case. You just kind of touched on, so my first impressions, as I've just recently started this, unlike you who has that experience, the tutorialization in Tacklebox is presented to you not through prompts necessarily to immediately use said actions, but through signs that tell you what button combinations will produce what outcome.
Yeah, and you have to make sure you read them all.
Yes, everyone. And just like you said, it really leaves it up to you to find unique ways that you can combine some of these mechanics. Mm-hmm. And it also, despite having clear paths through platforming puzzles, it leaves that capability for you to tread your own path if you can find a path that looks viable and you can apply those mechanics properly, you can take that path. It's just a matter of, can you pull it off in the proper order at the proper time? And it feels satisfying when you do.
Oh yeah, you gotta, through sheer force of will, just be like, is this possible? And then mess around until you either figure it out or realize, maybe not, and then move on.
And if you're like me, you may just continue to bash your head against the wall until you get it because you refuse to walk away from a puzzle.
Hey, you're going to need that mindset in this game. You're going to need that mindset for sure, because there are some. You chose the hardest area to start in, the like point of interest that was the hardest in my experience. This area that's set up like a tiered mountain with a winding path of platforming that leads to the top, where this creature that tosses down bombs at you on your approach sits in like a nest of sorts. But like when the bombs are dropping and you have to figure out where you need to go and what you need to grab, and you don't necessarily know that, you should probably take out the guy dropping bombs on your head, but don't forget that the bombs are used as well.
Yeah, well, and that's something that I will also go ahead and bring up. You saying that, in your opinion, I went to a point of interest that was probably on the more difficult side, is the compass.
Yeah.
Let it be known, the compass does serve utility outside of this, but it is a compass. It will point you north, not towards a specific objective.
Yeah.
This is another concept that I had to come to terms with whenever I followed it to what I thought was the starting point of interest. But again, I think that almost falls back onto that almost unlearning of certain skills in gaming that we used to have in more prevalent like supply, especially with, I can point to recently the Oblivion remaster kind of brings this back to the forefront of quest markers don't always have to exist or really like tell you exactly where to go. Using your own eyes and context clues and things like that are not as common anymore, I feel.
Yeah, it's a lot more common for it to like lay it out a lot more simply, but you got to check some of your assumptions at the door for this one.
Yes, and I genuinely appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's refreshing to run into these moments where I go, man, what am I doing? And not just be spoon-fed what the answer is.
Yeah.
And just in me talking to you about some of the mechanics and you further enlightening my understanding of how to utilize them also brings back the days of community of gaming, of like, yeah, I hit a wall. I don't want to look up a guide online. I just want to know if my friend has any tips or tricks that might push me along in the right direction.
Yeah. Does my friend have some secret move set? Like the slide chain, which is a combination of holding the crouch button and then hitting a slide that ends in a jump and repeating that to move at a quicker pace, which is a technique that can really, really help with some of the movement in the game. The slide chain really helps you get into that flow state. Like when you start learning how to, chain slides together, wall run in a more efficient way, all that kind of stuff, you start to get into the like flow state.
Yes.
So now that you have played a little bit of this game, a little bit of this demo, what are you thinking about the like the art style, the sound design, the music?
Man, we have discussed music in games before, and not to say that I don't appreciate music in games, because the Tackle Box does have a very nice soundtrack. It does music well enough that it runs into the issue that I run into with games, where I don't appreciate the music as much as I should because it just becomes as much a part of the scenery, and it's such a natural thing that it becomes almost like static. Even though I'm hearing it, it tends to blur to the back of my mind because it's doing exactly what it should. It's making me feel attached to the situation currently going on. And even though like tackle boxes, it's platforming. It has me focused on what I'm doing. I'm zoned in. I'm enjoying the music, but oh man, where's my next spot? Oh, I'm dodging a bomb. Oh, okay. What have I got next?
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciate the music. I wish that I appreciated it more. But that also falls on me and is probably one of those things I will probably look into listening to the OST outside of just playing it.
Yeah.
So that I can find that time to like actually sit down and enjoy the music.
Yeah, because I definitely showed you one of my favorite tracks out of the demo at work today, and it's a banger. It didn't do it justice when I was playing it over my phone speakers, I'll say that much. But the music in Tacklebox, I think each of the points of interest and like the desert itself have like a track that play. So like as you move from platforming puzzle to platforming puzzle, you will hear different tracks, and they'll kind of like dynamically shift from one to the other depending on where you are and what you're doing. And like you said, it kind of fades into the background and just becomes part of the auditory scenery.
Yeah.
But another part of that I really enjoy in this game is like the sound design. The sound design makes me, I feel like the combination of the art style, the music, and the sound design is like the biggest nostalgia bomb. Like it's like it achieves nostalgia in like the least gimmicky way that I've seen in a while.
Absolutely. It certainly sets itself as its own thing, but manages to encapsulate what made so many of what inspired it great.
Yeah, like the Dreamcast era and PS2 era, like 3D platformers.
Yes. On the topic of art style, not that this game should be compared to anything else, because the people who put work into this, I mean, they put that work in and it deserves to be recognized.
Oh yeah, but they had their influences and they wear them on their sleeve in this.
Absolutely. Sure. And one influence that immediately stood out to me, and maybe this is just my perception, was just the dialogue boxes.
Yeah.
The dialogue boxes bring back early memories of Legend of Zelda, and almost the collection aspect and the difficulty in the most complimentary way possible, platforming puzzles gives me almost Mario 64 vibes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, I have very little experience with Mario 64, but I played a little bit of it, and I played all the way through Odyssey, and I think I have to hand it to the Big Catch Tackle Box. It feels better to me. Like, the movement in Mario games is amazing, but there's like always like the new gimmick mechanic in those games, and like however much they try to evolve how movement works, it's usually pretty similar, other than like a couple of new things, like a couple of new tricks they add to your bag. But like the flow state, the feeling of like, oh man, I just like rode a sandworm across the desert, jumped off of a ramp, and then B-hopped to keep my momentum and jumped across a huge gap, and then like wall ran to catch a ledge. Like that kind of stuff definitely can happen in Mario, but like not to this level in my opinion, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the speed at which the Big Catch lends itself to is, I would actually say, very original to it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of many old 3D platformers that were so heavily momentum based.
Yeah.
Which I know we haven't spoken too heavily on yet, but that is one of your biggest mechanical advantages in the tackle box, is your momentum affects seemingly all of your interactions with the puzzles around you.
Yeah.
How high are you falling from will affect how high a trampoline will throw you up. And while that may not be like groundbreaking innovation, the concept of butt slamming down a hill to be able to clear a wall run without having to jump whatsoever other than to initiate, or just so many other instances of, like you brought up, using the sandworm, which is, quick, easily, or not easily, but good way to cross the desert,
Mm-hmm.
using its boost and immediately releasing from it, only to hop so fast across the desert, you might as well still be riding that worm.
Oh, yeah. And in some cases, going even faster. Yeah, definitely. Once all of the things start to fit together in your brain about how the mechanics work in that game, it starts to really open up. And that's one of the things, like, if you do try this game, listeners, definitely take some time to familiarize yourself with the mechanics, and then, like, once you have a little bit of a grasp, you can start to really, really, like, fly.
My advice so far is don't go to the point of interest that the compass leads you to until you are ready.
Yeah.
You will slam your head against the wall.
Yeah. Definitely kind of tough. It's a difficult game.
But it feels difficult in an earned way.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
One thing that I will bring to the attention of anybody who might be interested in checking this out, while the game is called the Big Cat, or the demo at least, is the Big Catch Tackle Box, fishing is much more collectible based. You aren't going to be having intricate fishing mini games, but that is not what this game sets out to do.
No, yeah.
Set yourself some very clear, yes, the title, and very much the gameplay does still revolve around the concept of fishing.
Yeah.
But it is by no means a fishing simulation game. So, in the future, looking towards the full release of the Tackle Box, the demo is set entirely, from what I've seen at least, in a desert landscape. Do you think that that will be expanded upon in just a broadening of the desert and maybe more inline puzzle platforming? Or do you think that it will consist of multiple regions, all consisting of their own points of interest?
So I looked into this when I first found the demo, and the full game is going to have more areas, and you're actually going to be playing a different character in the full game. So this demo, Tackle Box, is a prologue to the full game. So in the Big Catch Tackle Box, you play as Tackle, who is the rival of the main character of the main game, who is named Caster. And you play through Tackle's training to become a Fiscari, which is the position that both Caster and Tackle, it's like their job. And your rivals, you work at the same restaurant, getting fish for the restaurant. So you might see some more expansion on the fishing. I don't know if that's like something that they've said anything about, but there definitely will be more fish to catch in terms of collecting. But I'm not sure how much they'll expand on that specific mechanic, or if we'll see like different types of fish or anything like that require a different approach to catch or anything like that. But I am 100% sure there's going to be multiple different areas built out for the main game.
I'm excited to see what they come up with.
Yeah, in the trailer for the full game, you see a little like glimpse of some of the areas that are going to be in the full game. So
okay.
Definitely you could check out the trailer for the Big Catch and see a little glimpse of what's to come.
I'll have to do that. Without looking into it, though, I will blindly speculate and just say that a swampy Glen, a sloppy Gwen.
A slurpee?
Slurpee. A swampy Glen in their render. I think that would look pretty good. I think that would be aesthetically pleasing in their engine.
Oh yeah, that would like take me back to one of the Sly Cooper levels where you're like running around the swamp. And did you ever play through the first Sly Cooper game?
Oh yeah.
You remember like the
crocodile, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I forget what it is, but the like Voodoo Queen crocodile, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, and in that area you run around in a big swamp, and at a certain point you're running and jumping from tree branch to tree branch to get away from like a huge serpent that's chasing you, and it's like a big set piece moment.
Could absolutely see some cool puzzles coming in the full release of The big catch being you swinging
Oh
through
yeah.
multiple trees over maybe some terrain that you can't drop into, some or crocodile infested waters, maybe.
Well, that might. I don't. Not crocodile specifically, but there are definitely some swinging puzzles in the demo. Well, I'm glad that you have sunk your teeth into it and are feeling a little more equipped to tackle some of the problems in this demo, pun intended.
I'm hoping that potentially the next time we touch on this, I too might be a full Fiscari.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I believe in you. You got this.
We'll see. My confidence is up, but it may be shaken once again. So, with my homework check in out of the way, I think it's about time we jump into yours, which I have been thinking about a lot lately because I actually just listened to a retelling of the internet horror story Mother Horse Eyes, which in a very strange way connects to some of the themes of Cruelty Squad.
Oh really?
Oh, yes. We'll get into flesh ports and flesh interfaces, things like that.
Body horror and modification.
It's a very biopunk in theme.
Yeah.
It's a game set in an alternate reality where you take the role of a Cruelty Squad member, and using an array of weapons and different augments that you can outfit yourself with, you'll be set about assassinating targets given to you by a handler. And I would have to say it's probably best described as maybe Deus Ex meets Doom. I want to know, genuine opinion, because this is a game that can be very hit or miss as far as people's varying tastes. What do you think?
So on like first look, this is definitely like a game I would not have chosen myself to jump into, but as I explored, I only have made it through the first level, but as I explored that first level, and as you told me of some of the things to come in terms of unlocking augments and like weird synergies between those augments and the movement capability that those entail, my interest is piqued. It seems really interesting. It's a very jarring game though. The visuals are very like acid trip nightmare, like just bad bad,
no.
but very interesting at the same time. And all of the different aspects of this game, the sound, the music, come together to assault your senses in a very specific way I have not experienced in any other game. One thing I've noticed when I was playing through the first level, it took me a couple tries to get through, and one of those reasons that took me a couple tries is because every time you run into combat, certain music starts playing, and in that music there is a lot of texture and sound, and some of those sounds make me think I'm being shot from behind, and I will get distracted and I will turn around and then I will be blasted in the other direction.
Yes, everything about this game, from visual design to audio, it is an absolute assault on the senses. There is, even in downtime in missions, which there may or may not be depending on how you play, quite a bit or not a lot.
Oh
of
yeah, I mean,
downtime.
I spent like 10 or 15 minutes just fucking with the stock market, so
Yeah, well, and I can't wait for you to get into that. The way the stock market is interlocked with so many of the other aspects of the game, it's definitely something that you will continue to spend time in if that has already interested and grabbed you
Yeah.
a little bit.
I hopped into the HQ level and was running around killing everybody before I realized that it wasn't like a hostile level. And then after everybody was dead, I was looking around and I was exploring, and I found a few things that looked like, I can't quite get through this problem yet. But then I hit tab and opened up the stock market, which you can do at any time in the game, and you can just, play the stock market.
Yes, and this is partly why I have posited this game to you is I think a lot of the themes in it will lend itself to some very interesting conversation. Once you get into and really start to let some of the mind warping in, you'll feel a little silly about the stock market. You'll still do it and you'll still participate, but you'll think about it.
Yeah. I'm definitely, it's been a long time since I've played a boomer shooter, which this has a lot of elements of. And one of the things I was grappling with at the beginning was just like running and gunning. I was having a very hard time surviving.
Yes. This game can be very hard to access in terms of getting comfortable and feeling equipped for the missions. It very much lends itself to slow, methodical, thought out attempts, followed by quick, well executed retreads once you've found your personal golden path through your obstacles. And that's something I know when you were giving me tips on the tackle box, we kind of took a moment for me to show you just something that I thought was cool in the first level of Cruelty Squad. And I showed you there's a completely different way to access the building.
Oh, yeah.
And there are still more than just those two ways. Along with every subsequent level lends itself to approach it as slowly and as abstractly as you would like.
Yeah, and I was similarly banging my head against what I thought the immediate path was. And that's not quite the way in this game, I don't think, unless you're, knowledgeable of the layout and what you need to do when you get in there. But I'm definitely, now that I've kind of been given a few tips by Coach here and seen some of what is to come with the augments and how interesting all that might work together, I'm hoping that next time I hop on, I can find my feet a little more and really, really dig in.
Yeah, well, and I'm also very excited. You told me in the first level, for those who have played, you'll know pharmacokinetics.
I don't even know what that is.
You ran into an interesting scenario where you found quite a few things on the ground trying to get you.
Oh, yeah, there are these little fuckers. These little, what you have told me now are flesh rats. And I was trying to shoot them, but there were too many, and they overpowered me, and I didn't know what to do. And then it said something about like biohazard compromise or something. I don't even know, but something similar to that. And then I died, and then I avoided those little flesh rat boys after that.
I want to give you the warning. They will rear their ugly little heads yet again.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I think when you go into level 2, if you now knowing that you can talk to some NPCs in these missions, I think you'll find that some of the levels are interconnected in ways that you wouldn't have expected.
Oh yeah, a little bit of story.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I definitely just shot first and thought about asking questions when everybody was dead. So the second time I jumped into the HQ, I realized that I could talk to the guy at the desk, and I'll take that information into my next session of play. But yeah, it's definitely, I'm glad that this is like something that we're doing, because like I said, this isn't something I would have checked out probably if it weren't for you assigning it to me. So I'm getting a taste for something different.
Yeah, well, and before I ask you my next question, I will inform you, I don't know the name off the top of my head right now, but I will fill in our listeners and you when that information presents itself. Consumer Soft Products, the indie studio that brought us Cruelty Squad, actually just released their new game. I have heard it is just as difficult to gain a footing in as Cruelty Squad, but might be more up your alley. It is a mech-based game.
Ooh, that sounds pretty dang cool, especially with some of the little sneak peeks you gave me, thinking about how that could be implemented in a mech-style game would be interesting for sure.
Certainly on my radar is something that I need to be checking out in the very near future, hopefully. Before moving on from our gamer homework, I do want to ask you one more question, tangentially related to Cruelty Squad. What do you think of the, I don't know if it would be setting or styling of Biopunk?
Biopunk is really interesting because I haven't seen many games take on that as directly as this game, and that might just be because I haven't seeked it out. I don't. It could exist, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's definitely something a little grotesque and intriguing. In games like Cyberpunk, you get augments as well, but it's way more like clean. You obviously have like the cyberpsychosis element in Cyberpunk, but you don't really run into that in the game. But I feel like Biopunk definitely leans on the more detrimental aspects of body augmentation.
Yeah, the true horrors of what advancing your body evolutionarily could be.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely just like Tacklebox. There is not a lot of hand holding of any kind. I ran through, like I said, and killed everybody without realizing that wasn't really the goal in the first mission. That was just me, getting a little carried away. But there was moments where I was like, oh, this button does this? I didn't know I could do that. And I had to kind of like feel out some of the controls while I was exploring the levels. And that lack of a defined tutorial definitely mirrors The Big Catch in some ways because, while The Big Catch does have the signs that teach you the movement mechanics, you definitely have to learn on the run in that game. And I think you run and gun and learn in Cruelty Squad as well.
Yeah, well, and you just brought up, and I think is a great way to transition into the primary topic of today, being tutorials. What do you think the place of a tutorial is? As both of us inadvertently ended up propositioning the other to the gamer homework that somehow managed to fall just in line for neither really give you the typical tutorial experience, if they give you a tutorial experience at all.
True, yeah. I think, as you were saying before when we were touching on our first impressions of these games, it's refreshing in a way to like have a game trust you to figure it out. I like being able to like take that responsibility back on myself, because some games, the tutorial is like you're going to do this. It's going to be fully separately removed from actual gameplay, and you're going to be learning how to play instead of jumping in and like finding your feet on your own. And I like that respect to my ability to learn that some games don't seem to give.
Yeah, you say tutorials that sometimes might push you into a almost instanced situation where completely separate, once you complete the tutorial, it will then teleport you back into the game world and or return you to it in some fashion. I think Repo is a recent example of this that I just really did not mesh with.
Yeah. Fun game, but the tutorial was like really holding my hand and dragging me through the tutorial.
The tutorial could have ended much sooner than it did, just in terms of what it was asking of you and how much it was asking of you. I believe it typically like required you to lift and rotate, and all I needed to know how to do was lift an object and let it go.
Yeah, I mean, some of those things I feel like you could definitely prompt on the fly while you're playing.
Yeah.
Like first time you pick an item up in game, it's like, oh, press this button to rotate while you hold, and that would do me just fine.
Correct. They really do not lend themselves to that freedom of experience. Sometimes you have to fall.
Yeah.
Before, you walk before you run. So let me get out there, get my hands dirty, give me those prompts on my first couple of excursions. Mm-hmm. And then from there you can no longer provide them.
Yeah. Tripping up definitely helps me learn in games.
Yes.
If there's like a punishing moment where I'm like, oh, I might need to learn a little bit more.
Say, I know both of us are fans of the Souls and Bloodborne, Elden Ring.
Yeah.
all of those games hinge on, we've taught you what to do, but also there's a lot of hands-on learning.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to die to a boss, and you're going to get upset. And you're going to die to a boss again, and you're going to get upset at yourself. And you're going to start thinking, what did I do wrong? And you're going to try to fix that.
Yeah. As those games state, prepare to die.
Exactly.
And you learn a lot when you die. But yeah, it's definitely, it brings up a question of how much of a tutorial should be like mandatory. How much should a game force on you? What do you think about that? Because I know we both have had a conversation before this and have some thoughts on this.
Yeah, I am very much a believer that tutorials that require you to be in a separate bubble should all be skippable.
Yeah.
Give me the option, but do not force me into it. Which, to be fair, I do believe repos is optional.
That's true. I think most of us skipped it before we jumped into the game after like 5 minutes of putzing around in the tutorial.
Realized I'm over that.
Yeah, like everybody's waiting in the lobby. I'm going to just go ahead and figure it out on the fly.
Yep, and like we talked about, that works.
Yeah.
Whereas I do similarly to what we posited as the other way that they could have tutorialized repo is if a game is going to give me prompts as I am going through something, I would prefer it come naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you have games such as, I'll give, just because it's been very recent for me, Dead Rising 3.
Mm-hmm.
The opening to that game is a slog to get through. You have to replay through the entire tutorial opening in New Game Plus still. It's not as hand-holdy, but it is still very much your character will like hobble because, you haven't reached the section where the tutorial would normally teach you how to sprint. So no sprinting up until you reach that. Things like that very much cut down on the joy of replayability. Mm-hmm. Another game that comes to mind is Skyrim. The opening to that game has been memed upon endlessly.
Oh, yeah.
And to be fair, I am one of those people that anytime that I have gone back to Skyrim, I make sure that Live Another Life is installed before I boot up.
Oh, yeah. Any of the alternate start mods are a crucial must-have for a replay of that game at this point for me.
And that one crosses that line and kind of hits an important moment of tutorials can do something very smart, which is to tie themselves directly to the story of the game. Skyrim, Dishonored, games that make the tutorial more than just these are the controls.
Yeah,
it is an introduction to the world.
More than just like a separate instanced experience. They tie learning the controls and learning the mechanics of the game into the actual gameplay.
Right.
And I always enjoy it when a game doesn't gate any of the mechanics or any of the abilities that you're going to have once you're done with the tutorial. In some tutorials will, like you said in Dead Rising, will just remove your ability to do the thing until you get to the point where you can unlock the ability in the tutorial. I like it when the game just says, here's all of what you can do. You're going to learn how to do it over the course of playing. And if you know how to do it and come back later and start a new game, you'll be able to just instantly jump into everything you already know how to do without being slowed down by some instance thing or some gated experience.
Yes, because that is the downside to openings like Skyrim, of it is integrated into the story, but you are still very much on rails for the first, I'd say, maybe, depending on if it's your first time, potentially 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah, or
if you're not just rushing your way through.
Not rails, but wagon wheels.
Wagon wheels. True, true. I thought we were crossing the border.
I'm not a rebel.
My ancestors are smiling upon me, Imperial. Can you say the same?
Imperial bastards!
Ha!
Is that a dragon? That makes me think of a game that both of us have recently been playing, Final Fantasy XIV. This game, an MMO, keeps a lot of the functionality of the game locked behind what is a tutorial and also just 50 levels of gameplay. You don't unlock the full functionality of the game until you are multiple hours into it. And that has definitely been a hurdle for me in getting into that game. I enjoy it. It's very fun. And I'm definitely going to be playing more of it. But that aspect of hearing my brother and our buddy Cade talk about how after you get to level 50, it really opens up and everything is available to you. It's like, that's cool. I like that it will be available, but why is it so far away?
To my understanding, the max level is, at least base game, as I don't have any of the expansions yet, is 100.
Yeah, I think I actually don't know, but that sounds possible.
The idea that I have to nearly get halfway through the levels available to me, and I am still being taken by the hand and introduced to quote-unquote new concepts that anybody who has played an MMO is familiar with.
Yeah.
It's difficult to find the drive to want to keep going sometimes because, just like you said, we know that once we hit a certain point, yes, it does open back up. But until we hit that point, everything we do is just to unlock something that we probably could have been introduced to 30 levels ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And, this game does have pretty quick leveling and it removes a lot of the grind that other MMOs I've played, rely on to keep player interest, or not interest, but to keep you in the game. And so that's nice. I don't feel like because I have taken a break, I'm losing out on an experience. It doesn't feel like when I was playing WoW back in the day and me and my brother would make characters together and we'd make it to level 20 together or whatever in the first night. My brother would end up out leveling me very, very quickly. And after that, demotivation set in and I would, hop on and be like, well, I could catch up, but he's also still just going to keep getting further and further away from me. But in Final Fantasy XIV, that's not a problem, which I really appreciate because you can just hop in with your friends and play at whatever level together.
Yes, the level scaling feature is certainly a savior for the extra long tutorial feeling of you are still able to get into things with your friends and it still plays as if you weren't in a tutorial.
Yeah, that makes me think about how in games where tutorials aren't skippable, but easily could be for people who have that base knowledge about video games, where you've played games your whole life and you have a lexicon of all this information where you're like, oh, video game knowledge. I know how this works without being told. Let me just skip through and get into it. I feel like that's definitely something that not every game will let you lean on. And I value the ones where they see the group of people that already have that base of knowledge and they're like, you guys are fine. We're going to leave this here just for the people who need it, but you can run right through the gate over this way.
Yeah, I think a very big development that will hopefully be happening in the gaming space is I do feel as though we're seeing more and more games that are open to letting us skip tutorials. But like you touched on, the so-called game sense of put me in the room, I know what to do with the tools that are given to me.
Yeah.
Kind of mentality. And I think that will save a lot of games in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there games that I know for a fact I will sadly probably never touch again, just because I know what I'm going to have to get through to actually play the game in the way that I am nostalgic and like fond of. And I am also still heavily aware of what gates me from it.
The classic, look up, move forward, press the inventory button.
Yeah, and as much as things like Halo, where that is very much the tutorial, it lasts like 5-10 seconds. Some games now are getting very, just like Final Fantasy, but it has the excuse of being an MMO.
Yeah.
There are many game reviewers who I've listened to say that they consider the first 2 hours of a game to be the tutorial. And if that is the standard, I want no part of that.
That's kind of ridiculous.
I don't expect to be a top tier, like, master of your game and its mechanics within 2 hours. But within 20 minutes, I better have an understanding.
Yeah. Even in the first 5, I want to at least know what I can do to some degree and be sent off to do stuff with that information.
Yes. That's like, I find that one of my biggest gripes with tutorials is when they make you think that you've been set free, only to turn around and, oh, now there's a scripted event to introduce this new type of quest that you're probably already aware of how that works, but we're going to make sure this one goes extra slow and spells everything out so that when you come across this naturally, you don't get confused.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there is some necessity to have that for people who don't have that knowledge base, but again, that ability to recognize the group who does and say, hey, you can skip through this if you want, would be nice to see that become more standard.
Yeah. And I can say, because, I have a 4-year-old child, and wanting to see him enjoy and get into games, I know for certain those tutorials are going to be major for helping him lock down some of those skills, and especially just remembering what buttons do what and things like that. So I would never want to see like tutorials disappear, but I definitely, I agree with the idea that developers need to recognize their audience and make it more of an accessibility option of, I don't need this. Please let me get into what I actually want to do.
Yeah. I had something and I lost it. I got it. You found it for me. Thank you. And touching back on what you said about Halo, at least in Halo, it's tied into the game world, because whenever you're doing those look up, look left and right, that's the suit kind of recalibrating. And I like when a tutorial integrates itself into the game world and stays within the confines of the game itself, keeping you immersed while still teaching you how to traverse the world and how to interface with the game's mechanics, because, that keeps you rolling along the path. And I always appreciate being able to stay within the actual game itself as I'm learning and not be taken out of the immersion, which immersion's not everything to me. There are definitely times where I'm like, gamify it, don't worry about it, but like at least keep it within the natural state of how I'm going to play this game overall.
Yeah. I think a good example that comes to mind with what you described of like Master Chiefs, it fits because it's the recalibration of the armor, is Fallout New Vegas. Getting checked out by Doc Mitchell and your tutorial in that for look up, look around, it's, you were just shot in the head and said, I'm trying to make sure everything's right in there. Like, look up, let me check you out. Look to the side, let me see what's going on. And it makes sense. And like you said, immersion isn't the number one thing, but especially for a role-playing game like Fallout is, it goes a long way to come up with in-universe explanations. It's a better thing to me than having games where they'll have characters in the game state, press the X button. They shouldn't know that there's an X button.
Yeah.
Which leads to another, I have an example that fits that in such a perfect way is Tiny Tina's Wonderland. The tutorial in that does what it's supposed to of it manages to keep it in game. You know, you're not sent to another place to learn, but it leans into pointing out, oh, why is this tree knocked over? Must be an excuse for us to make you learn to crouch type stuff. And it's okay to poke fun at your own stuff when you realize like, oh, haha, this is kind of silly. Like you probably already know this, which I appreciate that. But just because you are self-aware does not make it any more enjoyable. In fact, it irritates me a little bit more that you are so aware that, haha, like kind of wasting your time right now, aren't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's skip that. Let's move along.
Definitely, I feel like influenced by the meta fourth wall breaking, like Deadpool style of like, oh yeah, you're watching a movie or you're in a video game. I'm a video game character. Press A.
Yes. Which very sad to me is, and maybe it was the immaturity that I had when those games initially came out, but the comedy in them has definitely taken a downturn.
Soured.
Yes. It was never amazing, but it has gone from, haha, I'm laughing with you to I'm not laughing anymore.
I'm shaking my head. Yeah, and related to that, you said earlier that, you know, there are some games where sadly, because of the tutorial in the beginning or whatever that first, 2 hours experience is, sadly, sometimes that keeps you from going back to it. That makes me think of Baldur's Gate 3, a game which I love, don't get me wrong, but both of us played through the early access of that game, at least for me, ad nauseum, leading up to the release of it. So I saw the beginning of that game so many times, and when the game finally came out, I was like, slogging through the beginning act, finding some new stuff in the full release, which was nice, and I liked that change or whatever changes I did end up finding. But I think that, the first 2 hours of that game being mostly the same experience has led me to now, after beating the game, deciding it's probably going to be maybe a couple of years before I jump back into it again, unless somebody asks me to like start up a campaign with them.
Yeah, I feel very much the same. Don't get me wrong, like you said, I loved Baldur's Gate 3. I played a ton of it at release, even after playing so much of the early access, but it very much has the issue of the entire first act, I would say, of the game. After having gone through it more than once, it becomes a task in checking off a list of, okay, I know this is over here, I'm going to go do that. Okay, I know this is here, I'm going to go do that. Because if I don't do all of these things, I'm not going to have my character leveled up to where I need to be for this section, and like very much feels like a task. I'm very chore-ish to push yourself through it, even though I know that on the other side, like there is still plenty in, I guarantee, Act 3 and 2 that I may have missed things in. Act 2, I definitely did a lot of exploring, but I think like you described it, the slog of getting through Act 1 anymore, post, first clear, is what keeps me from going back. Even though I know that there is like, I still have opportunities to experience things. I know what I have to get through to get to those.
And then, is it worth that slog to find those stones that have not been upturned,
Right. Especially like many people I'm sure would know is Act 1 of Baldur's Gate 3 can take an entire night of playtime. I mean, you could have 4 hours to sit down and you will not complete it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's 4 hours, I feel like, would be quick, because a lot of times, if you're playing solo, yeah, you could rush right through that stuff and get everything you need. But if you're trying to play with somebody else, all the shenanigans that make that game gay, all the shenanigans that make that game great are going to definitely keep you running around in that first act for a while, which, like I said, is one of the reasons I love it. I love that game for its systems, the way that you play, the combat, and all that stuff. I mean, I just looked at my playtime and I have 403.5 hours. So definitely one of those games where I have some issues, but I loved that thing. And I can't wait for mods to come out that maybe introduce a Skyrim-like alternate start to Baldur's Gate 3. But one of the other things about that game that, kind of touches on how sometimes tutorials can remove a little bit of player freedom is being stuck with the tadpole, and like having that be something that just, is an unmoving fact of that game is probably the main reason that it's going to take me a long time to get back around to playing another full campaign of Baldur's Gate 3. I definitely felt that aspect of the game losing its luster. It was cool at the start, but I remember playing through in the early access thinking like, oh, in Act 2, how are we going to get rid of the tadpole? And then like, let me just be an adventurer, please.
Yeah.
That'd be a really cool thing if modders wanted to, just open up the game and disconnect me from the main story and let me just exist playing in that game's systems and combat, and maybe make some community created levels. And I just like fighting stuff and the cool combat, but the rails, as some DMs and D&D players will know, being so very obvious in that game, while kind of hard to avoid in a video game, they definitely wore on me.
Yeah, definitely not quite as much freedom of choice as may have anticipated. And that, I think, lends itself to, again, talking about Act 1 and specifically like our experience with the early access, especially only really having access to most of tutorial-based gameplay at the time, was such a large emphasis on figuring out how to remove this that just instills this, we are getting this out.
Yeah.
There is a way, we have to. Or like the fact that initially you're left with the idea of you are on a time limit, and you could rest an infinite number of times from the moment you land off the Nautiloid and nothing will happen.
And then that was hand-waved.
Despite them having so many non-completion style endings to the game.
Oh, yeah. First time I ran into Vlaakith.
When I didn't realize that you couldn't just abandon Gale once you've collected it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But, more conversation about Baldur's Gate could be had in a different episode, but that just made me think the tutorial conversation and kind of removing the player freedom to engage with the systems made me think of that.
Yeah, totally understand the connection. I know we've started to stray a little bit from our initial talking point, so I think now might be as good a time as any to potentially be bringing this to a close.
That's fair. We could talk all night about a variety of things, but I think we've definitely said what we came here to say about tutorials.
Yeah, I know it'd be pretty dangerous if we just kept going. We would find ways to jump from subject to subject here.
Well, my boy, I think that has been this episode of Resync. If you made it to the end, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can follow us at Resync on Blue Sky. That's RESYNCCAST. And you can find Resync on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music.
Bye.
Bye.